So we are so grateful to have Carolyn back. Carolyn has always loved traveling, right? But this recent trip was the first time going back to the countries of her ancestors to walk where they walked and imagine the lives they left behind to come to America. Her life is a result of the decisions of many generations before her. Today, her speech is 5 to 7 minutes, titled, "Our Choices Affect Generations to Come."
Thank you. My mom is very ductile. She called me about 6 months ago and she said to me, Bart reminded me, it's like this, "Carolyn, I'm not getting any younger, my eyesight's not getting any better, and I want to go to where my grandma and my grandpa are from in Sweden and Denmark. And I want to take you and your sister with me." I was so excited. It has been my dream to take my mom back to Sweden. And Denmark, I wasn't really quite sure where her ancestors were from in Denmark. But Sweden, I served a mission in Sweden. I speak Swedish. The last area of my mission is where my great-grandma is from. Of course I want to go to Sweden with my mom. And of course my sister too. We have so much fun together. So I got a hold of our travel agent. We worked together, got the trip planned, and 2.5 weeks ago, off we went for a trip of a lifetime. And 2 things I learned on this trip. First is, it really matters that you write down something about your life. If it wasn't for any of the records that were kept, I would have had no idea where my great-grandmother was from. I would have had no idea where my great-grandfather lived. But because the parish priest in Sweden decided to record in a book not only my grandmother's birth, but her father, her mother, when they came to the area, when they left the area, the stripe is because they left, and when they left the area, I would have known nothing about these ancestors. And it was so exciting to discover where they lived. I'm imagining for some of you that you think that your ancestors came from some large city, or maybe if it was a smaller city, there'd at least be a few houses. We were driving down a gravel road, and then an even narrower road till it opened out into a clearing. And we thought, in front of this beautiful lake, and we thought, this is it? The road obviously can't go any further or we'd be in the lake. But I'm grateful for the decision of someone to create a wooden sign that said, Nesset. It validated that was the place. There was one house there, nicely groomed lawn, and lots of questions. Was that it? Generations of my family lived there, and there's only one house today? What happened? But thanks to that parish priest who walked those same roads, through those thick forests, over those boulders, went to that lake, I know they lived there. I know that they were born there, that they died there. And I know that that was an important decision that affected our trip. We enjoyed being in that area, and then we drove down to the island of Bornholm. And thanks to one singular record of the record of my mother's aunt, I know that her grandpa was from Bornholm. There was not a single record of a marriage, of an immigration, of anything that told me anything more than Denmark, until I discovered this one record of a birth of one of his children that said Bornholm, Denmark. But even though it's a small island, there's lots of communities on that one small island. And sure, we could have driven around and said, well, isn't this nice? You lived somewhere here. But I decided to go to church. I decided to go to the Family History Library just a month before we left on our trip. I had searched with no luck of finding anything about his ancestry. And I don't know about you, but in our family, once it came to Ellis Island, oftentimes the names changed. The spellings changed. And I knew in this case his name was John Munson. Does that sound Danish to you? that there was some other name associated with him. So I went to the family history library. There was a Norwegian woman working that day. We didn't really make any progress, but the next day, an email came. I found him. Ulsker Parish, Bornholm. The first day we arrived in Bornholm, I thought, I'm just going to head off to church because it's just around the corner. Our decisions matter. This day, in this parish, not only did I meet my son's mission president that happened to be vacationing on the island of Bornholm, President Kopitschka, but I met a missionary whose sole responsibility is the family history work of the island of Bornholm. He reads Danish. Swedish is a little bit like Danish, but I don't know if you've ever tried reading Danish records, but I am so grateful for people who can read them. This past week, not only did we find out where my great-grandfather is from, we found out about his father and his father, that he was a seaman and the other was a miller, that they lived and died in this community that we could visit. Those decisions mattered. Had my family not moved to Iowa, where I have the street Mormon Trek Boulevard, I would have never heard of Mormons before. I would have not known anything about their migration west, but we lived right next to that road. And I was curious enough to ask, who are they? And why is this street named after them? And because I ended up becoming a member of the church, I had access to all these records in the family history library. The people that took pictures of those records that I could look at, that I could do that research to find out about my family. I am so grateful for those small decisions. They've affected me. The fact that you're here today, they've affected you. It's no small coincidence that people left their homes, they left everything, their heritage, their culture, came to America, and we have the lives that we have today. I am grateful I shared that with my mom, my sister, my daughter, 3 generations. The only generation missing was that of my grandparents, my mother's parents. But 3 generations experiencing the life that our ancestors gave up to give us the life that we have today. And because of that trip, I also know that my decisions are going to affect generations to come. I'm grateful for the opportunities that I had and the opportunity to share that with my mom and have a dream come true. And the realization that all of our lives matter. Every scrap about our lives matters. Thank you.